In 2010, a gold mine was discovered near the Russian city of Yakutsk. Well, not literally gold, but something even more precious to scientists, a perfectly preserved woolly mammoth that had been frozen in time since the last ice age. This was huge news. After all, woolly mammoths are iconic relics of the past, the big hairy elephants with enormous tusks that used to roam the frozen wastes of northern Eurasia and North America between around 6 million and 10,000 years ago. But this particular mammoth was special. Not only was its brain perfectly intact, containing what might one day be the key to bringing back the long dead, but it was also just so lifelike it could have strolled out of the permafrost and into the forest beyond the dig site. That is, if it hadn't immediately frozen solid. So what happened here? And what does it mean for the future of science? Stick around, because today we're talking about frozen in time, the perfectly preserved beasts of Ice Age Earth. Humans and woolly mammoths coexisted for thousands of years. In fact, there's evidence that people hunted mammoths, perhaps driving them to extinction. But until recently, we haven't found many frozen mammoths from right at the end of their story, just before they disappeared from the face of the earth. Most of the well-preserved mammoths come from much further back in their history, which makes sense given that the deeper you go in the permafrost, the colder it gets, meaning things stay better preserved. The exception, of course, is the mammoth that froze just a few thousand years back, a literal contemporary of our own Stone Age ancestors. It's an extraordinary thing to find, and it helps us learn more about how these iconic creatures lived. Some even retain soft tissue, including blood. One can only imagine what secrets lie within. But mammoths aren't the only prehistoric beasts whose bodies have been locked in time. In 2019, researchers discovered a mummified foal, also in Siberia, that turned out to be 42,000 years old, yet still retaining whiskers, fur, and even the tiniest flecks in its tail. Earlier that same year, another animal was found in such good shape after being frozen for tens of thousands of years that it almost looked like a house cat. In fact, it was a snow leopard, and it was so well preserved that it even still had whiskers and fur. These are extreme examples, sure, but we have plenty of others, too. Take Smilodon, for example, the saber-toothed cat, a formidable predator with gigantic fangs that was famous for hunting North American megafauna, including, yes, woolly mammoths. Like the great white shark, the Smilodon has become a sort of mythical beast in the public imagination. Its remains have been found in caves across South America, and its skull is commonly found in fossil deposits. But unfortunately, its bones don't tend to fossilize well, meaning complete skeletons are incredibly rare. That's why one recently unearthed in Nebraska is such a big deal, because it's in such great condition. It's given scientists new insight into the size and weight of the actual animal, which, according to lead researcher Matthew B. Lamina, was likely closer to a tiger than a lion in terms of body plan and behavior. But make no mistake, this was a very large cat indeed, standing 4 feet tall at the shoulder and weighing over 800 pounds. To put that in context, the largest living cat is the tiger, which averages around 300 pounds. Meanwhile, somewhere far away from saber-toothed cats, the giant ground sloth was getting down and dirty. Yes, the animal most closely related to today's sloths was once a hulking monster, a true heavyweight champion of the ancient world. As you may or may not know, sloths are actually most closely related to armadillos, and together they form part of a larger group known as xenophrans. In the past, some xenophrans were absolutely enormous. Take Megalodon for instance, a creature from the Pliocene epoch that weighed nearly a ton. No, really. There was a giant sloth that weighed a ton. That's roughly the size of a polar bear. And while its skull has been found along with other remains, there has never before been a complete skeleton. Until now. A mostly intact specimen was recently found in Patagonia, Argentina, and it helped experts get a clearer picture of how these extinct monsters moved, revealing that they were surprisingly fast for their size, which may have helped them escape predators like Smilodons. The findings were published in the journal PNAS in 2022. But speed was probably the last thing on the mind of this next creature. Hi, I'm your host and you're watching this channel. Say hello to Petrodactys. Okay, unlike the other beasts we've talked about so far, Petrodactylus isn't technically extinct. There are hundreds of them alive and well in the Gobi Desert. But even so, these dinosaur-like creatures deserve a mention here. Just take a look at the fossil record. They're almost unbelievably well preserved. And in 2019, researchers even uncovered one that had been literally frozen in time as it ate. According to the researchers, this individual had gotten stuck in mud and then died. It is thought to be around 70 million years old, and it gives us an extraordinary glimpse into the Cretaceous period. Okay, it's time for something cute. How adorable would a baby dinosaur be? Imagine Jurassic World, but instead of vicious killers, there are goofy herbivores that kind of look like giant iguanas with legs way too short for their bodies. Now try to imagine one of those babies. So sweet. And thanks to recent discoveries, we can picture what this critter might have looked like in greater detail. That's because paleontologists have recently described a clutch of eggs from the late Cretaceous period that date back around 75 million years. What's exciting is that they come from the same species as the famous Ankylosaurus, the Boreopelta. Remember that guy from the start of the video? He's cute, but he's also covered in deadly spikes. Researchers think these egg discoveries may help explain why the Ankylosaurus became such an iconic member of the dinosaur club. For starters, the eggs seem to have been laid in mass, suggesting that the parents were either fiercely protective or that the eggs themselves were in danger of being destroyed by floods. Either way, this would have led to only the strongest, most resilient hatchlings surviving to adulthood. And as you can probably guess, being covered in armor was pretty helpful for that. But not every amazing piece of frozen prehistoric life comes from animals. In January 2023, an international team of scientists revealed that they'd made an incredible discovery in the remote Siberian wilderness. They'd found the world's oldest and best preserved flower, a poppy that turned out to be 120 million years old. That makes it older than any flower previously found in Siberia and among the oldest ever found anywhere in the world. Flowers like this only preserve in places where they're either super hot or super cold, meaning it must have been a very different place 120 million years ago than it is now. Even more amazingly, the flower was found alongside seeds that still looked viable. This suggests that plants in the region at the time produced food that didn't degrade over time, allowing the local animals to survive throughout the year. Basically, this flower is giving us insight into what life was like in the Cretaceous period, helping us understand the world as it existed before the asteroids. Volcanic eruptions and massive climate change drove the dinosaurs to extinction. It's not just flowers and animals that have been frozen in time either. Humans have left their mark on the world for tens of thousands of years, sometimes leaving behind entire homes built from wood, stone, and other materials. And while these structures usually degrade over time, sometimes they end up being protected against decay, wind, rain, and pests. That's what happened with the Neolithic settlement of Schierenberg, which was covered by a landslide soon after people abandoned it around 8,000 years ago. While this meant the end for the town, it also saved it from destruction, allowing archaeologists to find some of the oldest wooden buildings ever in the world. Wooden structures rarely survive the passage of time because they're so vulnerable to rot. But in this case, the structure was buried so quickly that it stayed intact. And that means we're getting a rare glimpse into the world of our distant ancestors. We're learning how they built their houses, what materials they used, and how their towns developed over time. So what do we do with all this frozen history? Well, some of it, like the woolly mammoths, will continue to be studied to help us better understand our past. Others, like the saber-toothed cat, will help us learn more about the creatures that once roamed the world. And in a few cases, they may even help us bring back the dead. It sounds like science fiction, but it's already happening. Thanks to advances in genetic engineering, scientists have already brought back the passenger pigeon, a bird that went extinct in the early 20th century. And who knows what will happen next? Maybe one day we'll see woolly mammoths and giant ground sloths roaming the earth once again. So what should we talk about next? Please let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for new episodes every week. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya!